Thousands of cars have been made in America, but some have failed to live up to the public's trust. They have deceived with their appearance, disappointed with their interior, and embarrassed with their technical problems. This is the Forgotten Car channel, about forgotten cars with an incredible history, classics that have fallen on the road, models that have lost their fate, and forgotten legends of the auto industry are brought to life here. If you are a car enthusiast, don't forget to subscribe. Press the bell so you don't miss new videos. Forgotten Car. Every car has its own history. 1970 Cadillac Calais. Why was it bad? When you hear the name Cadillac, certain expectations come to mind. Luxury, prestige, power, and comfort. But the 1970 Cadillac Calais? It didn't quite deliver on that promise. In fact, for many buyers, it turned out to be a disappointing reminder that not every Cadillac lived up to the brand's legendary image. The Calais was Cadillac's base model, designed to offer a lower price point for customers who wanted to get into a Caddy without paying Fleetwood or DeVille prices. But here's the problem. When people bought a Cadillac, any Cadillac, they expected luxury. And the Calais just didn't feel like it. It came with fewer features as standard, including no power windows, no tilt steering wheel, and basic cloth or vinyl seats unless you paid extra. Even air conditioning was an optional add-on. Many buyers were surprised or even frustrated to discover that their brand new Cadillac came with bare-bones features more in line with a Chevy than a top-tier American luxury car. Visually, the Calais looked nearly identical to the more expensive DeVille, but once you stepped inside or looked at the option sheet, the differences were obvious. Some critics at the time even called it a stripper Cadillac, and that's not the reputation the brand wanted. Beyond the underwhelming feature set, reliability wasn't perfect either. Some Calais models were plagued by electrical problems, especially in the power accessories and dashboard controls. Issues with wiring harnesses, faulty switches, and early failure of power features, when equipped, were more common than you'd expect from a luxury marquee. 1971 Buick Riviera Boat Tail. Why was it bad? At first glance, the 1971 Buick Riviera looked like something from the future, or maybe the past. With its long nose, sculpted sides, and that dramatic boat tail rear end, it certainly didn't blend in. Designed under the influence of legendary GM stylist Bill Mitchell, the boat tail Riviera was bold, polarizing, and unmistakable. But for all its visual drama, the car had some serious drawbacks. First, that boat tail design, while admired by some, was deeply controversial. The swooping fastback rear with a pointed tail was inspired by classic Auburn speedsters from the 1930s. But many buyers in the early 70s weren't ready for such a radical departure from mainstream design. It looked awkward from certain angles, and the sharply tapered rear window made rear visibility terrible. For a luxury car, that was a deal breaker for many buyers. Then there was the sheer size and weight of the thing. The 1971 Riviera stretched over 220 inches and tipped the scales at nearly 4,700 pounds. It was massive. And despite housing a powerful 455 cubic inch V8 under the hood, the car wasn't exactly responsive. Acceleration was decent in a straight line, but cornering and maneuvering felt sluggish and unrefined. It was more like steering a yacht than a personal luxury coupe. Buick also packed the Riviera with complex mechanical and electrical features, including hidden wipers, vacuum-operated components, and elaborate climate control systems. These were impressive for the time, but they weren't always reliable. As the car aged, many of these systems became notoriously difficult and expensive to repair. Mechanics often found themselves battling vacuum leaks, failing power accessories, and hard-to-source parts. 1972 Ford Maverick Grabber. Why was it bad? On paper, the 1972 Ford Maverick Grabber sounded like a fun little muscle car, a compact coupe with flashy stripes, a sporty grille, and a name that screamed aggression. Grabber. It promised power, performance, and attitude. But once you got behind the wheel, reality hit hard. Despite its muscle car image, the Maverick Grabber was mostly style over substance. Most Grabbers came equipped with a modest inline-six engine, and even when buyers opted for the available 3.2 cubic inch V8, it wasn't exactly a road burner. By 1972, thanks to tightening emissions regulations and rising insurance costs, performance had taken a serious hit. The Grabber might have looked fast, but it couldn't back it up. Handling was another major weak point. The Maverick was built on outdated underpinnings borrowed from the early 60s Falcon, and it showed. The steering was vague and unresponsive, especially at higher speeds, making the car feel nervous and unpredictable in corners. It didn't inspire much driver confidence, a serious flaw for a car that marketed itself as sporty. Then came the issue of quality control. While the Maverick was a budget car meant to compete with imports like the VW Beetle and Toyota Corolla, some versions, especially those built during high-demand production runs, suffered from noticeable flaws. Misaligned panels, rattling trim, and poor paint finishes weren't uncommon. It wasn't a total disaster, but it gave the car a cheap feel, even when dressed up in grabber gear. 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Laguna. Why was it bad? At first glance, the 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Laguna looked like a bold new chapter for one of America's best-selling midsize cars. It was introduced with a fresh colonnade body style. No more hard tops, just thick roof pillars and frameless windows. But that new look, it split opinions right down the middle. Many longtime Chevelle fans didn't like the bulky proportions and felt the sporty essence of the earlier models had been watered down. The sleek muscle car silhouette was gone, replaced by a more bloated and formal design that some said looked more like a family sedan than a performance coupe. The ride quality was another sore point. Chevrolet tried to make the Laguna feel more refined, but the result was a car that felt heavy and disconnected on the road. Despite its sporty trim, it didn't handle particularly well, and the suspension let in a surprising amount of road noise and harshness. The car felt neither luxurious nor truly sporty. It was awkwardly stuck in the middle. Inside, things didn't get much better. Chevrolet used low-cost plastics and vinyl that aged quickly and didn't hold up well under sunlight or regular use. After just a few years, many Lagunas developed rattles, faded upholstery, and cracked dashboards, making the interior feel older than it actually was.